Welcome to the Business Unscripted podcast. We're here to share real-life insights, practical strategies, and the honest lessons that we have learned from our own mistakes because, frankly, we have been in your shoes. So whether you need help with operations, accountability, financial knowledge, sales, or maybe just getting your mindset right, we are here, and this is the right spot for no-fluff conversations and tools that work. So grab your favorite cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. As that amazing sounding voice just said, grab your favorite cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Friday. I'm Dave Warden with Triumph Business Solutions, and I'm joined here as always. Well, not as always, as most always. Dwarn, welcome. Thanks for joining me for another Friday. How's your week?
Dave. Busy.
Very busy. The Australian came out in you there, that's for sure.
G'day, mate.
Dave. G'day, mate. Oh man, I love it. Well, welcome everybody. So if you're a business owner, or maybe you're an aspiring business owner and you just want a good place to listen to two average looking dudes, talk about their business experience and what we've helped our clients with both in the past, but currently you're in the right spot. Make sure you do all that fun algorithm stuff, like it, subscribe, and come back. Also, if you have questions, anything, there's no dumb question when it comes to your journey, our journey, anything, feel free to drop them down below. So you can put them down in the comments. We'll make sure either to answer them live or we'll answer them in the future if we see them after the show. But don't be afraid to ask any questions. We go live every Friday morning, just for your reference, every Friday morning around 8:15, 8:30. And we do that on YouTube, we do it on Facebook, we do it on LinkedIn. And if you're somebody that wants the audio version, you're listening to the audio version right now, well, we post that on all the fun, podcast places, Apple, Spotify, all those good, fun podcast places. So let's jump into it. So today we were talking last week and we decided that we are going to at least start the conversation around offers this week and how important it is, how you can create your offer. Because I think it's a question that I get a lot from individuals, or as I'm having conversations with them and I learn about what they're doing, they don't even have offers created. Duarte, what have you, in your experience, is that something that you personally maybe have, struggled with, or maybe it's something also that you've had conversations with some of your clients on?
Yeah, 100%, Dave. It's kind of interesting when you start looking at it as a one-man person handling all your own sales. You don't really think about it. It's like, yeah, I'll just make up some shit along the way and I'll just quote this job as it comes through and happy days. But as soon as you get people underneath you who are responsible to go out and sell the services, you have to empower them. And the way to empower them is to give them some bundled pricing or give them some offers that you can at least use as a starting point for the conversations. We took it one step further. We have a lot of white label partnerships. So what we mean by that is we actually do partnerships with businesses who resell a lot of our services into their customer base under their own branding. So when we introduce that, the first thing they all say is, oh, cool, can you send us the pricing? Yeah, great. Can you give us some collateral? So we have to have pricing, we have to have offers, and we have to have collateral that talks about our offers ready to go at the drop of a hat to send across for them. Because if we don't, it becomes too difficult and too hard. And can you imagine turning up at a mall and looking at the milk aisle and not having any pricing on it? You sit back and go, yeah, so how much is it? Oh, you're going to have to ask somebody. No, I don't want to ask somebody. I just want to know how much it is to start the conversation at least and help me with my decision making.
Well, and I guess when there's so much about, like you're saying a lot, right? You're saying collateral, you're saying offer, you're saying all that, and it can get overwhelming. So, and you may be thinking, maybe I don't even want to get into business, right? There's a lot of things that you got to do, but here's the key to anything, whether it's offers, pricing, business in general. You just have to get started.
Oh yeah, this wasn't all developed on day one. Trust me. It took us years to get to this point.
It's so easy to get paralyzed by the idea of, I can't launch this until I have everything ready, or people aren't going to one, be supportive of your product, two, stay around, three, tell other people about it. And so, but those early adopters, they understand that you're going through the build and that they get to be a part of the process. That's why they're there. So involve them, if it's a new service or a new product line. Dwarren, you mentioned, white labeling. So if you have other people that, are reselling your service for you, like give them a good benefit for being part of that first group of people, So if you typically want, maybe 25% revenue share, give the first couple people a 50% revenue share for the first 6 months, because they're there and they're going through some of that stuff with you and they're giving your feedback. So you're paying a little bit of that extra upfront for the knowledge, for their insights, for their feedback to you to help you generate your long-serving program and service. And so a little bit off topic on offers, but it's important to just really get started with that. And it's
relevant
so easy
though, because if we look at this, Dave, from the same point of view, is what you set up as an offer today is probably not going to be the price in 6 months. Your offer is going to evolve and it's going to change typically, right? So that offer you put out initially may need to be adjusted, changed. So even if you go out and even if you give a 50% discount, you may find yourself adding an extra 30% to the retail price in the future anyway. So it's at that point you can then readjust it. And the people getting the service from you are probably going to be, you want to make sure they're as invested in helping you launch it as you are, and it's going to be of a value proposition for them. This is not something you go and offer somebody who might sell one every 6 months or something. This is something who's probably got a customer base that's got, a requirement. This is a value add to their existing customer services. We white label to a lot of MSP and marketing providers. So MSPs are managed service providers, system integrators around the IT sector. So these guys are already dealing with the IT, the businesses. It's not hard for them to value add on some SEO, AdWords, pay-per-click, social media marketing, and website sales. So for them, it's a natural progression, natural conversation, and it's something they don't have to sell themselves. It's not something they have to stock up with staffing to be able to do. They don't have to have all the software and the knowledge in-house to do it. So you might find that your offer is just simply providing a value add proposition, product or service that works really well with what these people are already doing.
Yeah, let's take a step back and because this, I think we're diving into step 5, right? before we even hold you off step 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And so when you think of your service with your offer, the first thing that I tell a lot of people to do is think through the outcomes, right? What are those dream things that you're providing as part of your service? Those become the basic level detail when it comes to your offer. And so you may struggle with that, because I've had conversations with a lot of people that struggle because they're, for example, bookkeepers are one. They're like, well, I just do bookkeeping. Like, what else am I supposed to put in there as my basic service? Okay, like how often are you allowed to communicate with you, right? Is it by chat, email? Can they call you anytime they want? That's one line. That's one line, right? And then you have your different packages, which kind of ups the quantity or the actual service level for that particular line. What is your, deliverable? Is it quarterly? Maybe quarterly is your basic package, and then you have a monthly, for the top 2 packages. So you think of what is the speed at which you are actually, or the frequency at which you are also, providing the statements for them. Are you doing daily or, even weekly reconciliations, or are you just doing monthly, kind of categorizing and reconciling the bank accounts? Those are all things. So you take what you think is just a simple service and you break it down into the deliverables and the outcomes you're providing that are going to help them. And now that becomes your basic layer. And when you're doing that, you got to make sure that you keep the client's dream outcome in mind as you're creating this offer. Because if you're like me, and Dwarren, I know we've had this conversation, I'm in the numbers game, but I'm also a lot in like AI game. And so in the past, a lot of people eyes would glaze over when you start talking numbers or you start talking financials, because they know they need to do it. They don't get it, and they're trying to do it themselves. And so their dream outcome is, I want to take the stress off my plate. I want to take these hours off my plate and still have like the information to make the best business decisions. But I can't do that right now because I'm stressed trying to figure it out. And so the dream outcome there is like, well, you can outreach us anytime something comes up, right? Depending on your level. We're going to give you, we reconcile your bank account weekly. So you're able to kind of go in at any time, run a interim report and see the, up-to-date information by the end of the week. We help you understand your financials by doing a strategy session with you. We will sit down with you and actually, do a quarterly kind of analysis of your cash flow. We'll help you plan your cash flow, your budget, your goals, your KPIs, all those things that you need to make better business decisions that you mentioned was, something that you're looking to, have an outcome and take off your plate. These are the things that we're going to do. And this is why I feel like you fall into this program. But that's just step one, right, Dwarren? So what have you done? And we'll just go step one, and then we'll go into like step 2, 3, 4, and beyond after this. But for yourself, what have you done in that step one game? Because when people think web design, right, they're like, oh, you just designed my website. How have you kind of taken that to make it into a better offer?
Look, for us, we've got a few different ways that we have done this over the time, but the successful method that's worked for us recently has in the last 12 to 18 months is we found what was the biggest problem of delivering a finished website. What was causing all the delays? What was causing basically the bottleneck where everything just stopped? And most of the time that all came down to one thing: content. And when I say content, I'm talking about the wording on a website. That typically is what kills most website momentum in our industry. People don't know how to write the content. They sign up, they agree to do it, but then they get stuck. They don't know what to do. So we took on a value add proposition where we're able to increase our rates and include all the content writing. And we do it with unlimited revisions. Now, the key is we find out initially what they want during our initial onboarding. We then go and document that process and give them some samples, make sure we get the samples right. Then we produce the rest of the content. By doing that, we probably have about 15% worth of variation throughout the term of the delivery. And we're able to finish websites in under 3 months, where some websites used to take 14 months waiting for clients to come along and do the content. The other thing was we always offered content, but it was an additional charge. Now we bundle it. We don't give them the option. We tell them that it's coming with it. And we've had no one push back and say, hang on, I don't want you to write my content. Most of them say, oh, look, if you could do the draft and then I'll just review it. Cool. All right. That's part of it. And that's been a huge offer value add for us. And then obviously you've got all your upsells beyond that, but that's been our biggest draw. It's been successful for us.
And so there's one or two ways that you can frame it. And you kind of hit on what I call level 2. And this is either the add-in when you start bundling and you start creating your like program, right? Or if you're just looking to sell the website and you want to ask maybe a little bit more for it, this now becomes a add-on, right? A bonus. And where you have a value because you used to sell it and you could still sell it at that rate. That is what you call the bonuses. And this is where you start to throw in things on top of your basic level to say, well, if you kind of sign up right now, we're running this kind of program where you get this bonus of X, Y, and Z. And the idea with your bonuses is it's going to help the client obtain that dream outcome quicker or easier. So in your case, right, they wanted the dream outcome of the website being done and rebranded or reworked. What's going to help them do it quicker? Well, hey, we're going to throw this bonus in of we're actually going to write your first copies of your copy. You're going to review it, unlimited revisions. We're going to throw it in. Typically, we charge $1,000 for that, but we're going to throw it in. And so now the client feels, well, shit, I just got $1,000 worth of value if I sign up with Dwarren. And then when they go and review a website design with somebody else, well, they're going to be like, well, I have to do my copy here. And they're going, well, yeah, if you wanted to do that, I could charge you $1,500 extra. And now they realize that you're not comparing now apples to oranges, or sorry, apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges. And so that's why it's so important to have these extra bonuses that are going to help your client actually obtain the outcome, but it's not part of the main program. Because what's nice about that is your bonuses can change. So throughout the year, you want to have about 4 or 5 kind of specials that you're running. And how you do that is your main service will stay the same, but your bonuses are different throughout the year. And so that's how you make it feel fresh, even though it's pretty much the same program that you're offering. And so you want to have maybe 2 bonuses, per your offer or per your program that you're running. So in your case, you kind of bundled it together, which is completely fine, because that could be like your top level, right? Hey, this is like our all in. You get all of this, but you're also getting X, Y, and Z additional bonuses than the standard program. And so that's level 2, is think about what are the bonuses that you could offer as a business owner to the individual. It's going to help them make it, that much more easier to get that dream outcome. And so
you can always peel it back at that point too, right? You can always peel your top offer back if you need to. You can downsell it. You can take out and say, look, if you don't need the content writing, we can reduce the quote down to this for you to fit into the budget that you're talking about. But if you go in and you have to keep adding everything on all the time on that initial conversation, you can have an adverse reaction. So there's a pro and a con for doing this.
Right. But so when you include it as a bundle, like you said, and somebody looks at the price and they're like, well, I don't want you to write my content. They expect you to reduce your price now. But when it's a bonus, right? If it's framed as a bonus, they're not paying for it, right? And your main service is still your main service. So you can't really get, a reduction of your price if you don't take the bonus content.
You've got to build that offer properly to not get caught up in that where you're just adding an extra service, etc.
Correct.
You've got to frame it correctly.
You don't want to do a lot of these things that maybe people feel like they don't want. Those necessarily shouldn't be part of your main offer, the main program. What people feel is like the selective options. Those now are what you should do as your bonuses, because if you pull it back and somebody doesn't want it, it's like, okay, well, it's a bonus anyways, you don't have to take it. Or you could potentially offer them something in replacement of that bonus that's, of lower cost to you, right? And so when you think of your bonuses, that's the first step, right? Think of what are those selective things that a lot of people either add on or don't add on. That becomes a bonus. The second part is you want to make sure that it's low cost, low time for you, right? So if you're adding all these bonuses that are adding hours upon hours every month into your workload, that's not a good bonus. You should be getting paid for that. So it should be part of your main service. Now, if you're adding something like Dwarn, you have systems in place that probably help people generate that content based on the industry, based on everything that you've seen. That system, it probably doesn't take you a lot of time. The revisions might, but the initial providing of that value does not. And so people are thinking, well, if it only takes Dwarn 30 minutes, why is it $1,000 value? It's $1,000 value because Dwarn has years and years of experience building that expertise in order to create that system to give you that content in under 30 minutes. So what do you value more? The fact that it only took 30 minutes, or the fact that he's going to give you actually high quality content that's going to drive conversions on your page? That's why it's worth $1,000, right?
100%. It's the old adage where the ship's not working, and they've got the new mechanic in there trying to fix it, and he spends a week trying to fix it. Can't fix it. They ask the old mechanic who's retired to come in. He comes in, spends 5 minutes, gives them the bill, and then walks out, and it's running. And they look at the bill and go, $10,000? Why is it so high? Well, just because it took me 10 minutes to fix your problem, I knew where to look, I knew how to fix it, and I didn't have to waste all that time. You're paying for that experience. And this is where a lot of business owners devalue their offer a lot. Right. They try and their offer is typically based on how many hours or how long is it going to take them to do it, and they devalue it themselves before they let the client devalue it for you. Right. So if you know the value of conversation,
and again, now we have next week's topic, because we can go into it forever, and I don't want to like derail. And this is why we call
No.
it Business Unscripted, of course. But I think this is such a deep dive conversation because I've had so many. How do I want to say this, right, without being mean, right? But I've had so many, we'll call mirror moments with clients where they're so stuck in that hourly mindset that they can't get away from it. They just can't see it. They can't. And it takes months to break through. But then what happens is they get a client that they're focused on hourly, and then they realize that it's a time suck because they're doing extra work that they didn't even think of, and they devalued their hourly rate. And so now they're like, man, I wish I could be getting paid for this work it's taken up. Well, yeah, because if you would have listened to me, you would have gotten 3 times as much by giving the outcome. And they're like, yeah, I know. And then that's that moment. Sometimes people either learn because they want to grow, or they learn because they just went through the experience themselves, and it's like, oh yeah, you were right. It just happens, right? It's just life.
Pain helps us learn.
I've been on both sides, right?
100%.
So let's great topic for next week. So if you're watching and you want to find out what we're going to be talking about next week, at least in general, it's going to be that valuing of your offer, right? The pricing, the value, how do you got to get through your mindset and all of that. So that'll be next week's kind of show. So it's awesome. But to kind of get back to with the offer. So when you think of step 2, 1, it's kind of those optional selection things that people will either add on or not add on. But the second part to that is it does not take up a lot of your time or resources. So it should be something that's like evergreen, should be something that maybe you have a great system in place that you can run it and operate it without actually doing. And then
like a great option there, like just as an example, sorry to cut you there, Dave.
You're good.
If you're a mobile detailer, car detailer, a typical one that gets thrown in is doing the anti-beading on your windows where the water beads off, or tire wall, doing a good, tire black on the tire walls. These things are quick, these things are cheap, but they have instant value for the person who's looking at the vehicle after it's been cleaned or used, etc., and lasting effects. Those are the sort of things that we're talking about. We're not talking about if you're a bookkeeper and say, hey, look, we can do your payroll, we can do your accounts receivables. No, those are different services that you add on later, and we'll talk about later. But these are just little value adds that you can put in. If you're a consultant, it could be an extra 15 minutes consult or a report that you can give them, which it takes you 15 to 30 minutes to generate for them, which has high value for them. There's
and you got to think of it too, like what also makes your day-to-day easier. So when I think of like things that I'm doing and constantly evolving, right? Because we all know like we're doing AI and things change with that constantly. But as part of our services is we're creating more of a portal instead of trying to individually create things and send it to our clients. We're creating a portal for the client that you can have a library of everything, but then also they're able to kind of manage their own, kind of downloads and skills and things like that. So the idea there is that, they get access to that. That's a bonus, right? It's just, hey, you get this program, you're going to get access to this portal. And so it's that bonus that makes our life easier, but it also makes their life easier. And so that's a good bonus as well. And so that's how you kind of want to look at when you think of creating your offers, creating your programs. The next part to that is once you've decided on the 1 or 2 things that you want to offer as a bonus is your guarantee. Now, it doesn't have to be money back guarantee. It doesn't have to be any sort of, lifetime guarantee, whatever you want, but some sort of guarantee that they can feel confident that you are confident in the work that you're going to provide for them. And for a lot of this could be, hey, we do a 12-month agreement. However, part of my guarantee to you is if you feel like you're not getting value or you're not getting the support that you need from our team after the first 90 days, we'll go ahead and we'll cancel the rest of and you won't owe the rest of the agreement. You can just go ahead and get out. And on top of that, I'll give you like an extra, hour with me to kind of plan how to continue the momentum we started to kind of continue to add that value for you. But on your end, and you got to make sure that they have responsibility in that as well. On your end, in order to qualify for that though, you have to be doing the work. You have to be showing up to our conversations, and you have to be making the steps on your side, like implementing what we talk about, different things like that, in order to qualify for that. Sound like a fair deal? Great. So now you just created a guarantee and it doesn't cost you money. People think of guarantees and they're like, well, I'm going to have to get money back. Like, well, I don't want to do that. One, you should be confident enough to, even if they did ask for money back guarantee, that you'd be able to do it. And be confident that you could provide the outcome. And again, you put requirements and responsibilities on them. It's not just all on you, but there's responsibility. They have to give you the documents on time. Like that's the biggest thing. We talk bookkeepers, right? You do, especially for clients that don't want to give you access. They don't want to give you, their, a bank feed or any sort of statement access. You're relying on them to provide you statements. And I actually had a conversation with a client, because they're like, well, why can't you just provide me statements if things aren't reconciled? It's like, why would I want, I'm not going to sit down with you and with the information that's not complete. That doesn't make sense. I said, but here I am, I'm reaching out to you 3 times a week to get the statements. And so they were, once we kind of sat down and kind of hashed that out, I was like, I already had, and that's the thing when you think of bookkeepers, right? You're giving people the statement, you're giving people your bank statements. And so there are some hesitations right there. Well, why would I want to give them my bank access? Well, because it makes your job easier. You don't have to think about that. That's one other responsibility that's now off your plate. And so in essence, if you're like, well, I'm worried that they're just going to go in and start doing stuff. Well, technically they already have all your bank information that they need anyways. If it's a bad Apple bookkeeper, you're already giving them your bank statement. It has the routing number for any bank is public, and they already have your account number. So you're really only kind of keeping responsibility to have that extra responsibility on yourself. So for you as the client, or sorry, not as the client, but as the professional delivering to the client, you do have to include those sort of like deliverable responsibilities. Like if for me to meet this guarantee of a deadline, you have to provide me all of your documents by this date. And if you don't, our deadline, right, is going to be adjusted and extended, which goes into an offshoot. This is why it's so important for you to have agreements. So many people I talk to don't have agreements. And now you're literally up shit's creek, because if you don't have an agreement that says what their responsibilities are, and you tell them that you're going to give them something by, let's say, May 31st, and they don't give you the information until May 30th, you still told them May 31st. You didn't tell them when they had to send you the stuff, and they didn't sign anything in agreement to that. And so now they want their money back. Technically, it's their word against theirs. And if they wanted to go to court, they might win, which means you might have to give them the money back and still do the deliverable.
And even a bank. You can go to a bank these days and request money back, or Visa, MasterCard, Amex, all these guys.
Right.
And then you have to fight it. You have to prove that it was.
And if you have no documents, no nothing, you're going to lose that appeal
every time.
Even if you already gave them the product, but you have no support, you're going to lose that case. Yeah. And so this is why agreements are so important as well. And people are like, well, I don't want to do contracts. I didn't say contract. I said an agreement. Wording's a little bit different here, right? It's just two people who are agreeing to do work together. What are the responsibilities of each party? That's the goal of the agreement. I expect X, Y, and Z of you. I'm going to give you X, Y, and Z from me. This is the agreed upon, right, workload. And also the process, like the invoicing process, the payment process, the change process. All those things need to be documented so that way both parties are on the same page. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of disputes. You're going to have a lot of misunderstandings. And it's really important for you to do that.
And this is a rinse and repeat solution, right? I mean, these agreements are going to be something that a cookie cutter for you to use over and over and over again. So create yourself a good one. Get it checked if you need to by a lawyer if you're concerned. Get it in there, template it. You know, we just did this with a client again recently where they're going out with outsourced staffing and they want to offer it. We gave them our template and said, look, this is our template. Feel free to start here. And because they were like, well, we need an agreement. What do we do? It was like, well, look, we'll help you with that. Right. But we're not going to, it's a legal agreement. You need to get your own legal advice on it. This is what we've settled on. We're happy with this. The biggest dramas that we see is in industries like if you're a drop shipper, it's very easy to prove that you ship something. You've got courier receipts and delivery receipts, etc. You can show those numbers. You can show proof of receipt. But if you don't give out an agreement for a services rendered, or this is another one that we've seen in the past where we don't start work until the agreement's signed and the first invoice is paid.
Yep.
That's our standard process. We have written in there that if they don't pay their invoice by X amount of days after issue, these are the consequences in relation to that. We will cease work. If they do not reply back within X number of days when we put a request in for information on the project, then there's a consequence for that. We'll deem that as, that part of the process void, or that, we'll only do 3 follow-ups. We're not responsible to do more than that. All these little things need to be built into your agreement. And I think we've talked about agreements in the past and how important they are. But when you're offering services, huge, huge importance. And when we start looking into those agreements, make sure you're not seeing it out an agreement that's covering 16 different services that you're offering when you're only offering them 2 of the services that you actually do. Try and make it a little bit more tailored to the outcome. You'll get a lot less objection.
Yeah, the first things that I always make sure when I'm creating an offer or any sort of program is the agreement piece has to be like the non-negotiable to go along with it.
Yeah.
And you can have like one agreement, like let's say you have a main service that's got 3 tiers. You can create one agreement that has the 3 tiers. You just have a selection box at the bottom of that agreement, and they select which package they're picking, and then it details out, well, based on this package, this is what you're getting. And so 100% agree with you, and we can go into agreement expectations and what needs to be included again in another episode, or maybe depending on how long we get in this episode, we can jump into a little bit more. But I do agree with you. You got to have some main things in there that cover your ass, but also you want to make sure that it's covering theirs too, like on your side. Like,
it's got to be fair, or it'll never stand up in court.
Right.
If you do have to,
they'll never sign off.
Right?
They'll just do a bunch of red line versions. And like, an agreement isn't to put one person over power of the other. An agreement is that you guys, exactly as it states in the name, you agree to these terms so they're favorable to both sides. It should never ever feel like one side won an agreement or not.
No, it's just settling on the expectations from both parties to make sure you're both going to deliver what you're claiming to deliver. You're claiming to deliver services, they're claiming to pay you, or they're going to work together to help you deliver the services. We've got written explicitly in our website design and development contracts that when we send a review of a website, whether it's a page, content, whatever, there's 10 business days. If we haven't got a response within 10 business days, we deem it as accepted. We move on. And that's written into the contract. It's written in there for them to sign and agree. And we did that is because we found ourselves getting into positions where clients wouldn't sign off on something and we're stuck at that point. We couldn't move forward. And then when
the deadline comes up, the client's like, well, why did you miss the deadline? Well,
exactly.
We sent you this, change order and you never signed off on it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so just like a proposal, an agreement is also good to review with your clients as well, like in depth. And it's also one of the things that with my advisory clients, I do go over in like our first session to say, hey, by the way, like, I just want you to make you aware of, hey, this is what we're both kind of agreeing to. These are the expectations. That first session is always kind of going over those it's expectations, what's going to happen, both sides, everything. So don't just send them the agreement and then just forget about it once they sign it.
No.
Again, your goal with a business relationship is to build that relationship. If you just leave it alone and then you just let it, and then when something comes up, like, well, you signed the agreement, that's probably not the best way to handle things, right? So that's why you want to have the conversations and build that. So
absolutely. And you should never say it's in the agreement that you assigned. You should be able to go and respond and say, look, let's just refer to clause blah, blah, blah in the agreement. You might note that it's got this written here. Did you want to have a call and discuss that? Because this is a breach.
And so there are times where you do have to refer back to it, So if they're pushing back, or they're saying, well, that never happened. I didn't do that. And you can say, well, on this page, right, in this paragraph, this is where this is kind of called out on. More than happy to kind of walk through it. and then just have that conversation and walk through it.
And one thing that's really interesting I want to add here too is just because you have an agreement doesn't mean that it's locked in stone and you have to do that as the service provider. This is your baseline. If you have 10 days to get a response, give the client 10 days to get a response, and they get back to you and say, "Well, it's going to take me an extra few days. Is that okay?" Then sure, you can. There's some discretion there. You say, "Sure, I'll extend that out to 12 days."
Yeah,
whatever
you can write it in there. Pending. The
mutual agreement,
mutual agreed upon, but the baseline is 10 days or something like that, or mutually agreed upon, response day or something.
Because I know a lot of people out there are like, I don't want to do an agreement because I don't want to lock them in on that. It's interesting. I was watching a podcast the other day, and it was about a managed service provider who's 20 plus years in the experience, and he's helped with huge amounts of mergers and takeovers and buyouts, etc., in that industry within Australia. One of the things that he noted was his current MSP business, they stopped putting people on 12-month, 2-year contracts, which is really ballsy in my opinion. So what they did instead, they ended up putting in agreements which said, look, you need to give us 90 days notice to move away. So they could stay as long as they wanted or as little as they want, as long as they gave 90 days notice. So 3 months notice, which meant his contract was effectively a 3-month contract. And he found that almost nobody left. The attrition was very, very low because they didn't feel locked in on an agreement. So if you've got clients out there who are like, I don't want to sign an agreement because there's a term that comes with it, there's ways to think around that as well. So when you prepare your offer, you could say, look, I'm not going to lock him in on 6 months or 12 months. Not going to lock him in for 24 months. This is just put in there that we need 60 days notice to end the contract or end the agreement.
Yeah, the term just becomes evergreen. The term's monthly, but in order to terminate the agreement, it's just a 60-day notice.
Yeah, and that is easier pill to swallow for a lot of people signing those contracts because it also helps with them not feeling locked in. Because we all know how phone companies have made us feel about being locked in. No one wants to be locked in on 24 months when there's new phones coming out every year, right? So we want to.
So now they charge you an extra $15 a month to upgrade every 12 months, and I'm a sucker that pays it. So to go back,
I just happen to live in a country where I can buy phones for a few $100s, so I just replace them every year.
If you don't have an agreement, takeaway is at least get something. And even if you already have clients now and you don't have agreements with them, get something in place and send it out to them. Hey, by the way, we're just updating our records. We noticed we didn't have a signed agreement. Here's our agreement. If you want to chat through it, we can, or talk through it. If you're doing, consulting work or anything like that, have the conversation with them. Hey, by the way, we're going to be putting an agreement together. We're kind of, formalizing our records. Notice we didn't have one for us. Let's put one together. I'll send it over. You can review it.
Yeah.
Going back to our offers, because again, agreements is great. Right. But going back, so far, right, the biggest thing is one, break down your main service, which you may think is as simple as just bookkeeping or I'm going to do your car detail, but break it down into the individual kind of outcomes, deliverables that you're going to give, and then that becomes your main project. And so now, when you break that down, you're giving the value of everything that comes with a bookkeeping package. Right, you get the outreach, you get the questions, you get the advisory session, either the quarterly or the monthly, kind of financial statements, whether you're doing categorization, weekly or monthly. So all those things are value lines in the main service. Then you have to think through bonuses, right? What are bonuses that help achieve that main outcome of the main service, are low cost to you, and don't add a lot of time, but high value to their client. Like Dwarn's example, where he mentions that their bonus is they are now including, the copywriting as part of website designs now. That's a good bonus because a lot of people don't necessarily do that. Plus, it helps him deliver the outcome because now he doesn't have to wait on the clients to create that. So that's a great option for a bonus. Also, it's generally the selective items that people either add on or don't become your bonuses, because what you don't want to do is if somebody says, well, I don't want that. Oh, great. It's just a bonus anyways. If you include it in your offer, now if somebody says, well, I don't want that, they expect you to reduce your price. So don't include it in your main bundle if it's a selective item. And then we talked about your guarantee is the next thing. And then there's a couple other things to kind of focus on with which we're going to jump into next. But your guarantee doesn't have to always be money back. Okay. Your guarantee can be something as simple as, right. If you feel like at the end of the initial agreement before it renews, if you haven't gotten the results, we'll continue to work with you until you've gotten the results from the initial agreement. There you go. That's a guarantee that people feel like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get this. May not take the 12 months, but I may get it. Also, another good guarantee there is offer them a get out of the contract free if there's no value that they're feeling like they're getting the support. But how we got into the agreement discussion, to kind of go back to that really quick, is you have to also have expectations from your client. Because if you don't have the expectations of your client and you offer them a guarantee, the risk is that they don't have to do anything. If they're not going to do any of the work that you expect of them, and then they're like, well, I'm not getting the value. Well, yeah, because you haven't come to the sessions, you keep canceling, you haven't done the input. Like, I've done my side, you have to do yours. Yeah. That's how you qualify for the guarantee. So you have to have some sort of qualifications. And in order to document that, it needs to be in an agreement. So those are the main three that we've talked about so far when it comes to offers. Now, the next thing you want to think about is scarcity, right? Or urgency in how you present your offers to clients. So when you're having the conversation, the bonuses, right? The guarantee, those are all things that you only can do if you're doing 4 or 5 specials throughout the year. Those are your urgency. Well, this is Memorial Day because it's May, right? So this is our Memorial Day package. It comes with X, Y, and Z bonus and this guarantee. However, you have to book by May 31st. If you don't, then these bonuses are going away. We'll still be able to do the main service for you, but it's still going to be full price. You're just going to lose all your bonuses. And so that's the urgency factor. Your scarcity factor, and people are like, well, I don't want to lie. Well, you're not. Because if you're a one-man show or a one-woman show, and you have limited capacity. So, to say something like, well, we can only bring 2 people on at this offer this month, how is that a lie if you only have capacity to onboard 2 new people? That's not a lie. It's being truthful. And so you're framing it in a way that just says, well, we can only take 2 people this month for this offer. So it's got to be booked by May 31st, and I only have 2 slots. If you're not going to book it, then you're going to risk, and you're probably going to pay more next month, right?
It's true. I had a client conversation actually in relation to that a couple of months ago. They were talking about a marketing blitz, and I asked them a straight question. I said, how many new clients could you actually onboard each month for this service? And it's funny because the business owner's in the meeting, and then there's the guy actually doing the deliverables. And he's like, if I was pushed, I could do 2. Okay. I'm like, good. So that's 24 a year, but let's make it 22 because you've got Christmas and the beginning and New Year, which that's going to take out the option of 2 for that time off. You're not going to be able to do it. So that's 22 a year. So we need to be getting you in X number of leads every month to be able to qualify to get those 2, if that's the case. So there's no point if we sign you up for 5 in a month and do a huge marketing blitz and get you 5 in a month because you're not going to be able to deliver. They're going to be on a waiting list, and then the chances are they're going to drop off and you're not going to get the deals. So it's a very important thing to note when you're doing these offers. And this is something I've seen so many times where you've got a business that, like, let's say detailing. You got your existing customer base that are coming through, and 80% of your week is all booked in, and you put an offer in to fill up that last 20%. And maybe you want to do a little bit more and just do some overtime to go with it. Or maybe your offer is to allow you to get another employee to come in and help you do more. So you've got to work out why you're doing the offer in the first place, and how you're going to deliver on that. So putting some scarcity around it is not a bad thing. Apple have just done it again. Apple have ran out of Mac Minis. And there's rumor that they're going to be releasing a M5 very soon. They've created scarcity in their product. You cannot order anywhere on the Apple websites across the world now a brand new Mac Mini. It's just not available. It's a scarcity product. And what's happened is there's a lot of people scalping these now at $1,000 plus on Craigslist, on Gumtree, on eBay, and all that sort of thing, and even Facebook Marketplace, because there's now a scarcity for the product. That's not the way we're telling you to approach this. What we're doing is we're telling you to approach this from a realistic point of view, and just look at what you can really deliver, and then just be straight and honest about it. And don't be scared by sharing that information, because you're not telling them, I can only do 2 this month because that's my limitation. You're telling them you're only willing to take on 2 offers this month. You don't have to give them a reason as to why you can only take on 2. And just because your offer is 2 this month, in 12 months' time, you might have done enough of these deals to get more people on, and that might be 4 that you can offer them.
Well, so this is why it's so important for you to actually understand your own capacity, right? Your systems. And this is what
numbers, capacity, systems.
Your system has to be built in order to onboard more. Maybe you can start growing your team. But so many, their whole focus is, I just need more clients. Oh, okay. What if I gave you 100 clients tomorrow? Can you do it? No. Great. Your problem isn't more clients. Your problem is your system and your onboarding, right? Because a lot of people, could potentially, depending on, their business line, if you have the right system in place, even if you're a one-man show or a one-woman show, if you had the right system in place to onboard people and to run the program and the offer that you're providing, you should be able to bring on 10, 15 people at one time, and you have the onboarding process set up where all of them could get onboarded and serviced right from the get-go. But if you don't have that set up, you may be like, well, I can only do like 1 at a time. Then again, as you said, why are you running marketing? And this is why it's so backwards for a lot of people, is they think, well, I have to run marketing. Okay, marketing is going to get you a bunch of leads and potentially new clients, but can you service them? Can you onboard them? Otherwise, you're just wasting money. And so that's why systems and your program needs to be developed first before you think about marketing. So many people think I have to do marketing first, and it's backwards. You have to actually get your system in place, your program and your service in place first. Then you can build the marketing once you've actually are confident that you can bring on a multitude of individuals at the same time. That's the ultimate when you think of that piece and capacity. So
and that's it.
That's the scarcity, right? And the urgency factor. This is why you want to have this sort of refresh of your programming, is so that you can offer these 4 or 5 different specialized services and specials that feels like you're resurfacing, it doesn't feel like you're just reusing the same program. You're turning it into a new program and a new offer 4 or 5 times during the year. The main service stays the same, but the add-ons, the bonuses, all of that, those are what you shift and you change around to make it a new, actual, fresh feel with your clients. And so that's the last piece there. And then you kind of bundle it all together. And the ultimate goal, right, is then you name it that, some fun name or however you want to do it. So if it's like we just said, Memorial Day special, this is our Memorial Day program for bookkeeping or for detailing or website design, whatever it ends up being, if you're in the US. So the naming is probably not as important as everything else. Like, you can name it whatever you want, but those first 4 pieces are the most important. You have to get those right, and you have to think through those. Otherwise, you're just going to be the everyday person down the block that's just doing the same services as everybody else.
And the other thing to keep in mind too is your offers. Look into your industry, see what the other offers in your industry are, and don't copy them. Find something unique to stand out, and it doesn't have to be your flagship product. So many people think it's their flagship product they have to run as an offer, or their cheapest product they have to run as an offer.
Right.
Do something in the middle. Pick something different. You might have 5 products and you offer 3 of those products throughout the year. Not the cheapest, not the most expensive, but the 3 in the middle, and just alternate between those as offers.
Right.
And work out, and this is my biggest recommendation when doing offers, work out what can you deliver more of with least resources and least effort. And that should be your first offer that you go out to market with. Because if you haven't got the processes in place, at least you can sell more of it and handle it without the breaking. And use that funding that you get and the revenue to figure out and invest that back into building those processes and making it so you can deliver bigger, better services and products at higher volumes in the future.
And so hopefully we've covered offer for you in depth. Well, maybe not in depth, but we covered the main, kind of things that you should be thinking about when you're in business and you're like, I don't know how to create an offer. Go back, re-listen to this episode. We're going to give you some good insights, as well as some, ancillary things to think about as well when it comes to like agreements and value and stuff like that. But next episode, we're definitely going to talk about value, right? How do you value yourself? How do you value your offer? Because so many people, especially if you're coming from the employee world, you're coming from the employee mindset, it could be hard for you to get out of that. I need to think of my hourly rate per each one of these programs that I'm doing. It's a good baseline, but it's not how you should be valuing your programs, your service, yourself. You should be valuing yourself on outcome and what is the value that you're providing to the individual, as well as your experience to get you to where you are today. So with that, we'll talk about all that on the next episode, and then we'll dive deeper in one of our future episodes as well on agreements. What are some things to consider? All of those things. So I think we definitely came up with a couple alternative topics, but we just don't have enough time left in this episode to dive into those right now. But so
that's
it's
not
always
normal at all for us.
No, not normal at all, right? We always kind of get to that point. So if you have questions at any time, like drop them down below in the comments, or afterwards, if you're listening to the replay or you're listening to the audio version, drop a comment or a question down below. We know you have them. Don't be afraid. There's no necessarily bad question when it comes to any of this information around your business. Either we're going to know and we can help you answer that, or we'll help you point you in the right direction. That's the ultimate goal. Me and Dwarren aren't we don't know everything, and we don't, or we'll never claim to. We share experiences, support that we've gone through already or that we've helped others with, and we share those here with you and to help you and guide you through your own journey so that you don't have to make necessarily all the same mistakes that we did in ours. So, Dwarren, with that, what's your main takeaway from today's episode that you hope the viewer listening or watching takes away and starts implementing in their business this week?
I think talk to your customers about what drew them into the offer when you do set these up, and start looking at what you can deliver today with ease and at higher volume, and start formulating an offer around that initially, because that's a great starting point. It's not going to complicate things too much for you if you do get high volumes of sales. But the other thing is, don't get too caught up on not getting hundreds of people signing up to your offers. It's not about always getting the offers when you're putting these offers out. Sometimes it's about just the awareness and getting the word out and getting on people's top of mind, so when they are ready to make a decision, you're the one. So think car detailing, air conditioning, servicing and repairs, roofing, lawn maintenance. These guys, they're not going to need services from you right then and there potentially, but the moment they do, you're front of mind. These offers that you're putting out and if you're regular with these offers, and they're all a little bit different every now and again, but they stand out, they're going to really help you long-term with your awareness campaign, and they're going to get your word out there about you and your business and what you can do. So don't get too caught up that you're not getting hundreds of people signing up to your offers from day one. That's normal. It's not about that. And remember the volume you can actually bring on, because you might not get excited because you don't get enough people signing up. But then remember, well, I couldn't have taken on that many anyway. Getting one or two people to sign up to your deal is sometimes really good. Here's an example. I had a call with a client today who does screw piling. So it's a technique of foundations in loose soil, sand and stuff like that. And I asked him, I said, well, how much do you want to put on your AdWords budget? And he shared the number, and I'm like, okay. I said, do you mind if we start at somewhere about half of that for the first month? He's like, yeah, sure. I said, so what sort of return on investment are we looking for? You want like a 3 to 5 time investment return? And he goes, no, that's okay. If I can get a couple of jobs booked a month, I'm happy. I'm like, what's the revenue for each? What's the cost of one of these jobs? He goes, they average about 15 grand a job. Wow. What's your margin on something like that? About 30%. I'm like, okay, so realistically, you do need at least 2 jobs a month coming through to cover the cost of your marketing on this. Yeah, but it's not about he said, what you don't realize is a lot of these guys who are going to use it are going to be return customers. So that 2 can become 10 over a year.
Right.
I'm like,
well, and so that's where, kind of customer lifetime value and your customer acquisition costs comes into play. So don't always think like that first service, right? If it's a monthly service, you're not trying to get a 3, 4, 5 times return from that first buy from your marketing with that individual. The idea is that you're at least covering the cost of the marketing, right? The cost of acquisition minimally, and then your 3, 4, 10x returns are going to come over the lifetime of that client working with you. And so you want to look at what's the average length of time that a client stays in your realm. What is the average number of times that they purchase from you, right? So if it's a monthly service, per year, it's 12. And then if they stay for you for 2 years, that's 24. And then what's the gross profit on every one of those purchases? So don't think top line. This is where the numbers can get skewed. Think what's the gross profit from each one of the purchases. And then that becomes, you multiply that by the number of times that they purchase from you over that length. Now that becomes your customer lifetime value on a gross profit margin. And then you compare that to the cost of acquisition. It could be that you may, pay 2 times as much to bring in a new client if you only look at that first purchase that they buy from you. Sometimes maybe 3 or 4 times on that first purchase. But the idea is, what is that full value? That's where you're going to get the long term. So you're right. He has, the perfect sort of mindset. But I think a lot of people are just, if I spend $1,000 in marketing, I want to at least get $1,000 of gross profit. And sometimes that's not going to happen.
No. And that's it. And this is where you need to engage, in my opinion, a numbers person like you, Dave, if you don't know how to approach these things, because there's different perspectives on this. It's not as linear as people think it is.
Right.
And the offer, from a marketing point of view, it's as much about a brand awareness and getting your business awareness out there and what you can offer and do, as it is about getting the sales. And for those out there, you're educating the public that you're there, and you do that. And with any luck, you can attract them in to look for more services and take you up on another offer, another product or service that you offer as well. And with any luck, you're not selling you're not a one and done business. You've got services you can offer over long-term periods. And that's
why there's also and this is way deeper of a conversation, but also a little bit outside of our specific realm. But you have top of funnel, you have middle of funnel, you have bottom of funnel, sort of ads and targeting that you should be doing on your marketing as well, which if you're not at that level in your business, and you're only doing top of, so all these cold ad outreaches and posts, you're only hitting one subset of the funnel that is, maybe 5, 6 layers deep. And this is why marketing and ad, everybody's saying, oh, I can just run Facebook ads. I just hit a button. You're right. You could, and that's a start, but it's only top of funnel. It's only the cold lead gen. You're not seeing the people that might have clicked or stopped on your page and then retargeted. That's where all these extra layers come in, which again, outside of my realm, I know, enough to be dangerous here. But the idea is that once they click, maybe they didn't submit the form or they didn't buy, but they're going to get retargeted with future ads because you're retargeting them now. And you have to have a retarget campaign, and you have different copy and messaging on the retarget campaign, versus the main campaign. And so there's just so many different things that you want to be doing here to kind of maximize that. But until you've gotten past a system, a approved offer, approved program, none of that matters. And you don't have the system. You have to do everything else first before you get into marketing and really kind of building out your multi-layered, kind of funnel. Otherwise, you're just kind of wasting money.
100%. And time. I mean, your time is of value, especially if you're a single operator. Right. You don't want to be doing 16 hours a day every single day. That's just not what you're doing it for. You're not trading time, your time for money. You want to get an outcome. You want to be able to bill for those outcomes, and you want to be able to do it in a way that gives you a little bit of free time, gives you the ability to get the time to drop the kids off at school if you need to go to a school play or watch a ball game. Those sort of events, spend some time with the family, take some time off for a birth of a child. Those sort of things are what you're working hard to achieve. And in order to get there, you need to take these steps. You need to introduce the processes. You need to put an offer out there. You need to take the risk. And don't be afraid. Your first offer may not work. Your second offer may not work. Your third offer may not work. But just be consistent, like we talk about all the time. Consistency is the key here. The more consistent you can be, the better the chance of success is in the future.
I would say, like, my takeaway for y'all from this episode would be, just get started on it. Like we say that a lot, but just get started. Create something. If you have nothing in place, like, just create something. And remember that you're looking for, and you need to think through, what are those pains? What is that dream outcome that my client wants to achieve? My service, my offer needs to provide that and speak to that dream outcome. Right? And it's going to help them, right, understand the percentage of likelihood that they're going to achieve that dream outcome, which is where your guarantees kind of come in, the length of time, all of that kind of plays into that. Those are all deciding factors in your client's mind to decide to move forward. And so if you can handle all of those in your offer, now that's when you start to have this, grand slam, this home run, this out of the world kind of offer that people are going to feel dumb if they say no to, because you have bonuses, you have guarantees. It's a problem that they have. So you've identified that they have this problem. You're going to help them solve it. It's almost a no-brainer for them to say no. Right. And so with that, that's why I would just work through it. Make sure you speak to those pieces, I think, is the main. And then next week, as we talked about, we're going to be talking about your value, how you can price yourself a little bit better. How, once you've generated your offer, how do you determine what that value is? That's what we're going to be talking about next week as well. I'm sure, just like this week, we've talked about a lot of other things as well. So with that, please do all that fun algorithm stuff. If this topic was impactful to you and you have maybe other business owners in your network, feel free to share this. Like, as we say at the end of every episode, we're on a mission to impact and serve 1,000 business owners by the end of 2028. Dwarren's here along that mission as well. So we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you sticking around if you're watching us live, and if you're watching us on a replay, we appreciate you just as much. Share those questions down below. And until then, Dwarren, thank you for another amazing conversation, and we'll see everybody in the next one. I hope you have a great week.
Thanks, Dave. Take care, everyone.
See you, everyone.